Perfecto. Bueno, primero darles la bienvenida a este panel sobre perspectivas de desarrollo energético en el Caribe. Creo que hoy estamos como también marcando un hecho histórico también en OLADE, teniendo aquí a los representantes de la mayoría de los países del Caribe que son de nuestros países miembros. Creo que esto es sumamente importante y queremos dejar también ese mensaje de integración que hoy estamos realmente valorando, ¿no? Para poder tener este panel aquí. Agradecerles a todos nuestros panelistas, ellas y ellos que están conformando hoy aquí con su presencia, y les agradecemos muchísimo por eso. Hablar un poquito sobre el desarrollo energético en el Caribe, que se encuentra efectivamente en una encrucijada crítica, dado que la región obviamente enfrenta desafíos significativos derivados de su geografía insular. Su alta dependencia de los combustibles fósiles importados y su vulnerabilidad al cambio climático, pues obviamente son razones de peso para estar aquí hoy sentados discutiendo y dialogando sobre el tema. Sin embargo, también existe un potencial notable para transformar sus sistemas energéticos, incorporando datos y tecnología en los sistemas y avanzar hacia un modelo energético más sostenible, resiliente y equitativo. Algunos conceptos claves que pueden guiar también a esta transformación, que incluyen la resiliencia como un eje conductor del desarrollo, la descarbonización como un pilar económico para reducir la dependencia, mitigar el cambio climático, la electrificación, la integración regional y el acceso universal de la energía. Le doy la bienvenida como para poder dar un tópico de palabras introductorias a Gurbus Gunnel, el director y Country Engagement and Partnership de la Agencia Internacional de Energías Renovables, IRENA. Gracias, Gurbus.
Thank you very much, Gloria, Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a great pleasure for me to be part of this conversation and provide Irina's perspective on energy transition in the Caribbean region. As our moderator highlighted, that I think energy development in Caribbean is at a turning point, facing significant challenges such as high dependence on imported fossil fuels, susceptibility to recurring extreme weather, and negative climate change impacts. There is substantial potential for clean energy transformation in the region through tailored strategies that focus on strengthening resilience and amplifying decarbonization efforts. That's how SIT's Lighthouses initiative, that is coordinated by Irina, was born 10 years ago in 2014 as a climate initiative at Paris COP. And it aimed at creating a platform uniting SITs and several partners from the governments, from the private sector, development organizations, to be able to give an opportunity to the SITs to voice their opportunities and challenges, but also what would be the way forward to facilitate the energy transition efforts in the region. It has an ambition of 10 gigawatt on the ground by 2030, which is not a goal far from reach, because today it stands at 8.7 gigawatts, and I think the SITs will surpass that objective before time. And over the past years, Lighthouses has grown to a mature initiative and supported 40 SITs through 330 country-level activities, 45 regional activities, and 56 global activities, benefiting more than 100,000 people in SITs. There are 12 priority areas which very much align with the very recently released ABBAS, which is Antigua and Barbuda agenda for SITs, and NDCs have been a good framework for Irina's support to the SITs in the past period. We have implemented several activities in the region: Antigua, Barbuda, Barbados, Belize, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis. In fact, this year and next year is the opportunity to do more. because the countries are expected to submit updated NDCs before Brazil COP. And our expectation is also to those new NDCs ambitions are aligned with the tripling goal, because as you might recall, COP28 came up with a tripling goal, tripling renewables by 2030, and this could inform the process for further raising ambition in the NDCs. Within that picture, I think to achieve the climate goals and decarbonization goals, I think electrification plays a very key role. Because what we see is, especially renewables, together with energy efficiency and electrification, they will do the good part of the job. And most part of the emission reductions can be achieved through this way. Basically, the approach is produce as much as possible renewables at competitive prices, and then try to integrate renewables and into end-use sector, not only for power, but also end-use sector, how we can electrify end-use, transport, industry, commercial sector. I think how we can more and more integrate renewables into it. Obviously, this will bring in additional load into the power systems, which are already stretched, and especially bringing in more intermittent resources, so the system reliability may become an issue. But then we talk about the system flexibility. I think this is the key word. And system flexibility is not only about having firm capacity at the supply side, but having a strong demand side management, having flexibility options across the power system. Storage is an important part of it, obviously, but also having interconnections, which is a limited option for the islands case. And I would like to give you a couple of examples of IRENA support. For instance, in the Antigua Barbuda, we came up with an technology plan for road transport electrification with renewables, e-mobility plan. And it says that by 2046, it is possible to 100% electrify the road transport sector. Obviously, it will come with an additional demand for the power. It will require around 90 megawatt of more solar coming into the picture, around 20 megawatt coming wind coming into the system. So it will add additional renewables in the system. Other one is agriculture. Agriculture is an important sector in some of the countries. And we are working with Cuba right now. We are developing a country strategy and how we can electrify agricultural and food value chains in the country. We look into milk value chain. We look into vegetables and fruits value chain. We look into cereals and try to see what are the opportunities. Because the country is 80% import dependent in terms of food supply. I think we have the representative of Cuba here. And how we can bring in modernization into the agricultural sector, how we can make it more resilient to climate change, and how we can work with the government to integrate those options into the picture. Other one is rooftop solar potential, because land is scarce. And what are the options to use solar more effectively is the rooftops. And with the rooftops, it's not only bringing sustainable power, but also working with the rooftop design and how we can make it more resilient into also with disasters, climate events happening frequently in the region. And the last point I want to highlight is because we are hearing a lot about not renewable energy technologies, but SIDS appropriate technologies. And it is important to work on that. We cannot work across boards as we do in many other countries, that looking into the picture or the mix from renewable technology, but look at the SIDS appropriate technology. And one of those is more and more agenda is geothermal. And how we can work to scale up geothermal deployment. But obviously it has own challenges. One challenge is obviously the small markets, and it's very difficult to justify huge investments into geothermal with the small market. So there are discussions with CDB and the countries we are having now, whether is it an option to integrate systems in the different islands, especially in the Eastern Caribbean. And this is the conversation that we have initiated with the CDB and the countries in the region. We are working also raising the capacities with GeoBuild program with the OECS. We closely working. And how we can scale up the capacities and skill set in the countries. And also we have an ETAF. ETAF is an Energy Transition Accelerator Financing Platform. IRENA is a financial institution, but we facilitate mobilizing financing into projects. One project that we have worked is the Dominica. And that project, we work with the government, and we have provided some assistance, some capacity building, some facilitation with the private sector to be able to move forward the project. And I think during last COP, an agreement was signed between the government and the private company to be able to take this project at a further stage. We have organized the IRENA Caribbean dialogue on investment and finance last year in Barbados. And that provided, I think, good start for us to how we can be more present on the investment and finance space. And we are very much looking forward to taking it forward in the coming future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Gracias, Guru, por el incansable trabajo que también hace Irena, ¿no? y en apoyar a los países de la región, específicamente en este caso a los países del Caribe, ¿no? De nuestra región. Pues yo voy a iniciar brindándoles una primera pregunta. Primero quisiéramos escuchar un poco brevemente cuál es la situación actual, el estado actual, algunas iniciativas que han realizado, pero también quisiéramos ver, dada la dependencia que tiene el Caribe de la energía importada y del gas natural como combustible de transición, cómo podría la integración del gas respaldar esta transición energética estable sin obstaculizar también el proceso de las iniciativas en energía renovable. Entonces, en esta ocasión voy a ir brindándole la palabra. Quisiera empezar con el ministro Joel Santos Echeverría, ministro de Minas y Energía de República Dominicana, del Ministerio de Energía y Minas de ese país. Por favor, ministro.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes a todos. La verdad que para mí es un honor estar no solo con mis colegas y, hay que decirlo, compatriotas, porque somos de la misma región, sino también con el público en general. Y también decir que me estoy tomando mi cafecito porque, como estamos hablando de plantas eléctricas, pero también hay que echarle combustible para que prenda el sistema. Bien, nuestra situación pues es muy particular. La República Dominicana, como mencioné en la reunión de ministros, tiene un crecimiento económico promedio del orden del 5% anual. Su energía está creciendo, su demanda está creciendo mucho más rápida que el mismo crecimiento de la economía. Lo está haciendo en el orden del 7 y el 8% anual, lo que es una buena noticia porque responde pues obviamente a un desarrollo, pero al mismo tiempo también supone nuevos retos para nuestra industria. Hemos venido trabajando de una manera muy importante en la diversificación de toda nuestra matriz energética. Hace unos 20 años prácticamente el 80% guardaba una relación más con heavy fuel. Ahora realmente el heavy fuel es más o menos el 20% del sistema, otro 20% es carbón, hay un 35% que es gas. Y luego entonces viene el resto, las renovables, que juegan pues obviamente un papel cada vez mayor. La idea es, estamos ya, si incluimos las hidro, que son un 6%, estamos acercándonos al 25% de nuestra matriz de renovables, con el objetivo de alcanzar el 30% para antes del 2030. ¿Cuál es el sistema? Obviamente tiene una importante demanda de proyectos, hay unos 30 proyectos ahora mismo en desarrollo, 26 de esos proyectos son renovables, hay unos 3.200 megavatios que ahora mismo están en desarrollo y otros más que están en camino. Para que ustedes tengan una idea, la demanda del sistema actual es de unos 4.000 megavatios todos los días. Es decir que estaríamos casi duplicando la demanda en los próximos 4 años en lo referente, a la producción de energía, aunque nuestra capacidad es de unos 6.000 megavatios en estos momentos. ¿Cuáles son obviamente los retos dentro de...? Bueno, también hay que hacer una inversión importante de transmisión, unos 450 millones de dólares en los próximos 4 años, y el área de distribución requiere de unos 300 millones de dólares todos los años. ¿Cuáles son los retos? Rápidamente, pues obviamente ante ese incremento importante que tenemos en las renovables necesitamos definitivamente fomentar el almacenamiento. Mínimo se necesitan unos 200 megavatios de almacenamiento en el corto plazo, y con la idea de que por lo menos haya unos 1000 megavatios de almacenamiento en el cortísimo plazo. Eso es fundamental para poder adaptar uno de nuestros grandes retos, que es la estacionalidad. Tenemos estacionalidad horaria, es decir, diferencias entre las horas pico durante el día y las horas normales, que pueden alcanzar una diferencia hasta de 1000 megavatios. Eso es un reto para administrar un sistema. Y también durante el año, las altas temperaturas causan también diferencias importantes entre los llamados meses. En República Dominicana, al igual que en el Caribe, hay dos tiempos, el caluroso y el más caluroso. Pero esas dos etapas del año, pues obviamente también se están diferenciando cada vez más, lo cual requiere también esfuerzos importantes para administrar el sistema ante los cambios bruscos en la demanda. Y sin lugar a dudas tenemos que protegernos, lo mencionaba también en la sesión de ministros, del cambio climático, porque pues obviamente tenemos que hacer las inversiones, ya no concentrarlas en una zona específica del país, sino que tenemos que concentrarlas en distintos puntos para protegernos particularmente de los huracanes, que son obviamente un tema muy importante en nuestra zona. Hay que mirar el tema de la integración, lo mencioné también en mi participación de esta mañana. Para nosotros obviamente es mucho más difícil porque somos islas y obviamente es un reto porque requiere inversiones en cables. Hemos hablado con Puerto Rico la idea de construir un cable entre Puerto Rico y República Dominicana. Ese proyecto está avanzando, pudiera estar en los próximos 3 o 4 años avanzado si los procesos continúan. Y eso pudiera ser obviamente de utilidad y pudiera ser un proyecto que se extienda al resto del Caribe. Hay que pensar algo, señores, y con esto termino. El gran reto para todos nuestros países, y particularmente República Dominicana, es que nuestra legislación y nuestra regulación está diseñada para plantas tradicionales en clima tradicional con clientes tradicionales. Ya no tenemos ninguno de los tres. Tenemos clientes digitales, tenemos un clima completamente o muy difícil de estimar y obviamente tenemos ya un sistema que demanda plantas no tradicionales. Es decir, el gran reto es adaptar nuestra regulación también a esa nueva realidad. Ya los clientes no se sientan a esperar, los clientes de hoy día son intranquilos. Si hay un corte de electricidad en un pequeño pueblo, se siente igual en las redes que un apagón del país completo. Y realmente a esas realidades todos tenemos que adaptarnos. Y con eso paso la palabra.
Totalmente, gracias, ministro. Y efectivamente, adaptarse a las regulaciones es una de las prioridades, ¿no? Y mucho más en los países del Caribe. Efectivamente, muchísimas gracias por su exposición. A mí me gustaría ahora dar la palabra a Keisha, que nos está acompañando desde Barbados. Keisha Reed is Deputy Permanent Secretary of Projects of the Ministry of Energy and Business for Barbados. So, Keisha, I just wanted to know, obviously, how you are today, what are you doing today, and obviously how can gas integration support the stable energy transition without hindering the progress of renewable energies initiative that you have in And also, if you can tell us about next year and all the things that you have in Barbados. Thank you very much, Kicha.
Hello, good afternoon. So as she indicated, I work in the Ministry of Energy and Business, and
No worries.
so in 2019, the government of Barbados would have launched its Barbados National Energy Policy, a very aggressive policy where we're seeking to have 100% renewable energy and carbon neutrality by 2030. Right now, we are doing some work with the Commonwealth with respect to our energy transition, and we're reviewing our numbers. We're running scenarios for our net zero 2035 against net zero 2040 because 2030 is upon us, and although we've made some way, there have been some challenges, and the issue with the cost to 2030. So we're looking at that and balancing to see we may have to adjust the target. But at the end of the day, we're still running towards 100%. So currently we have 92.6 megawatts of renewable energy on the grid. Most of that is distributed solar. We do have 1 megawatt of wind, and we do have a number of wind projects that are also in various planning stages. And we have 10 megawatts of utility scale, and that brings the full total to about 28.9. So let's call that 29% of our grid. So it sounds like a little if you're getting to 100%, but what would have happened, I would say last year, the utility has an aging grid. And they've basically indicated based on the last IRP that the most they can have on the grid right now as it is 100 megawatts. And as I indicated, we're at 90, yes. So we're working assiduously with a number of our partners from RELP, the IDB, GAP with respect to best procurement. So we can not only onboard all of the applications that we have in the system, but that we can also expand the renewable energy towards reaching our target. But we believe that natural gas is a transition fuel, and our policy actually speaks to that. We see natural gas being complementary. We have natural gas on island. We used to send it to our neighbors in Trinidad, our petroleum products to process. Right now, we're actually importing because our natural gas supplies have reduced. We are putting steps in place to try to resurrect some of the old wells, but we are transitioning with respect to using less petroleum products. But we believe that there's a place for natural gas. And there are just 2 points that I wanted to raise with respect to why we think natural gas is important, because one is intermittency. Anybody living in Barbados will tell you we seem to be having more brown and blackouts than we used to before. Before it was something that happened once in a blue moon. We had a really bad blackout a couple of years ago that lasted 2 days. The utility would have reported that because of the renewables, every time they tried to put the grid back up, it came back down because of all the renewables coming on. So it's something that happens, and it's something that's happening because the grid is not smart, and they are moving towards doing a smart grid, but we know this is very costly. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. So we are working with the utility. The utility is working with government. We do have a great relationship with the utility towards addressing these issues. But in the interim, we're also looking at natural gas plants to assist with intermittency. Secondly, I wanted to raise a point which was raised with my colleague, resilience. We, knock on wood, we've been lucky and we've been spared. The last hurricane we had, which was this year, was what I would call a baby. So we did not have a lot of damage. Most of the damage was on the coastline to our shipping industry. But there's a possibility that you can have a Category 5 hurricane that totally decimates your solar plant. We have a lot of solar in Barbados. This is mostly solar. We have a lot of rooftop solar. So if that happens, then how does the utility ramp back up? How are they able to provide electricity to essential services? So we see natural gas, something that's indigenous and something we have on island. Even though we import some of it, we do have production on island, and this can be used to help us to ramp up in the case of hurricanes or any other natural disaster that may cause interruption in supply. And we also believe that is an efficient bridging technology as we transition to 2030. I'm just going to quickly talk about SE for All. The Global Forum will be held in Barbados next year. You are all invited to come to the land of sea, sun, and rum. as some will say. So that will be in March. I don't have the exact dates with me, but I'll get them. And when we come back around, I'll give you the dates. But I hope to see all of you next year at the Global Forum.
Thank you very much, Keisha. It's amazing though, all the work that you in Barbados are doing and all the issues that you have day by day with climate change, adaptation that you have to do, like all of you. So I wanted to let Ryan en español. O en inglés, como tú quieras, como te sientas mejor. Ahora queremos escuchar un poco a Belice. Ryan nos está acompañando hoy, es el director de energía del Ministerio de Energía de Belice. Y queremos escuchar un poquito, Ryan, tu posición sobre este tema y cómo está Belice, qué está afrontando, qué está haciendo. Luego vamos a pasar a otra consulta de barreras, pero hoy por hoy, ¿qué es lo que han hecho? ¿Qué logros han tenido? ¿No?
Okay. Muchas gracias. Belice históricamente el sector eléctrico es mayormente de energías renovables. Nada más en el año 2022 nosotros teníamos aproximadamente 52% de toda nuestra electricidad viniendo de fuentes renovables. Y eso es debido mayormente al hidro y la biomasa. Pero en el 2023 eso se ha caído a 38%. Y ese es debido a una gran sequía que sufrimos, que significaba que teníamos menos del hidro y también menos producción de biomasa. A partir de eso, nosotros ya estamos planificando ahorita para aumentar nuestras energías renovables hasta 75% para el año 2030. Y nosotros creemos que esto sí es posible implementando más solares, porque ahorita en el país no hay parques solares ahora mismo. Y también, como los parques solares también traen intermiticidad, también vamos a poner baterías. Estamos viendo en el próximo 2 años instalando 60 megawatts de solar y ya para el año 2030 160 megawatts de solar con 40 megawatts de potencia de batería con un suministro de 160 megawatt horas. Pero toda esta generación intermitente también necesita un base de generación. Ahora, hoy mismo en Belice, nosotros hacemos esto a través de turbinas de gas, pero corriendo en diésel. Y todos aquí sabemos que eso económicamente no es factible. Y con los avances de la tecnología, aunque no sería factible traer un centro de regasificación, sí es posible traer contenedores o isocontenedores de gas para hacer esa generación. Y eso es lo que nosotros estamos viendo ahora, para ver cómo podemos reemplazar ese consumo de diésel con el gas. También estamos viendo en el sector energético completo, estamos viendo cómo nosotros podemos reducir la dependencia en energía importada. Y esto es mayormente a través de las gasolinas, los diésel. Y esto solo es posible a través de electrificando la movilidad. Y ahorita tenemos un programa fuerte para electrificar no solo la movilidad privada, a través de instalando puntos de cargas públicas en todo el país, pero también tenemos un proyecto piloto para hacer electromovilidad del transporte público. Está empezando pequeño, nada más con 5 autobuses para transportación dentro de la ciudad de Belice y también transportación entre ciudades, entre los diferentes distritos. Pero esto nos va a dar la información que nosotros necesitamos para brindar al sector financiera, para que ellos puedan tener la confianza en prestar a las industrias privadas que mayormente se ocupan del transporte público.
Muchas gracias, Ryan, por la excelente explicación que nos has dado sobre cómo están ustedes y cómo han avanzado y cuál es el esfuerzo que están poniendo, ¿no? por volver a recuperar, ¿no? Este indicador y esta estadística que tenían y que pues obviamente por los diferentes motivos que has explicado ya pues no lo han logrado, pero ahora están trabajando como para esto desde 2023 para adelante, así que muchísimas gracias. Now we're going to Timmy Bash from Trinidad and Tobago. He's the Director of Energy Research and Planning Division in the Ministry of Energy of Trinidad and Tobago. And I just wanted to talk about something that we were talking with Timmy about as an energy producer as you are, you know, in the past 120 years, what advice would you like to do with these countries which are now becoming a new player in a global energy sector? And also the question that we all have and we all did already about how are today and how gas integration support the stable energy transition without hindering the progress of renewable energies initiative that you have. Thank you, Timmy.
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you for having me on the panel. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'll go to the last part first. So energy integration in the Caribbean, it's a very tricky subject. The Caribbean is a unique region. We are small island, medium island states, small island developing countries. We are surrounded by water. So the integration of gas and getting an integrated system to provide complementary power supply, feedstock for power supply will be a difficult one when considering the transitionary process. So we are surrounded by water. We are not like continental countries where we can run pipelines on land, run cables over ground. We have to run subsea cables. We have to do underwater pipelines, which are very expensive, very costly. And one of the things I want to come back to is what the minister from the Dominican Republic was speaking about in terms of the regulatory framework. We are different jurisdictions. We have different languages. We have varying populations and varying regulatory and policy frameworks. And to have an integrative process to have gas integration throughout the region will be difficult. We need to synchronize certain regulatory frameworks for energy because our jurisdictions and our laws are very different. And that is key in trying to develop a good regional integrative process. We also need to look at, while trying to do that, sensible economic clusters. We are small island states again, and we have different needs, we have different demands. And to get projects off the ground for renewables and even for transitioning to gas will be difficult to get good pricing. If we need to have, for example, I'd use the example of Barbados. If Barbados needs to put down a 40 megawatt plant and goes out for an RFP, they would not get the right and good benefit. We probably need to look at doing a 150 megawatt project on 3 islands. And we then look at gaining economies of scale and have one project being financed for 3 separate islands. I mean, we can figure out the gas supply for each country. The logistics are simple. The engineers can do that. But we need to formulate policies and plans to get good value for your money. And the only way we can do that is with sensible economic clusters. And we need to identify that with good and what should I say, good regulatory frameworks that will integrate that process, so and it would not cause a hindrance. With respect to doing that and trying to pursue low carbon future, net zero carbon, looking at renewables, there are also some risks which we need to look at. What will be the risk of putting down these types of integrative processes and putting out capex to formulate this, and renewable energy now becomes the competitive advantage of renewables, gives it that push. We may now be left with maybe a very costly mechanism which may add more to a burden rather than be a benefit to us. But we need to look at the data. We need to look at what data we have, and we need to look at current data. We need to analyze the data. One thing the COVID-19 pandemic did is that it disaggregated a lot of things. We now know in each country what our demand will be if our public sector does not go out to work. We know what our demand will be if we don't have tourists coming to our country as opposed to having full capacity. We have that data now, and those 2 years should not be lost years. We need to analyze that data, look at what our demands will be, and look at how that anomaly affected our demands, and make projections based on that. And by doing that, we can now formulate our projects with the intention of catering for increases in population, or increases in demands, I should say, based on how you see your population transitioning, and what will be your main focus of your economy at that point in time. So we also need to look at, within the region, we are price takers in terms of all our fuels. We are not price makers. Trinidad and Tobago produces natural gas. We produce possibly around 3 billion cubic feet of gas a day, and about 50% of that is liquefied and exported, and the next 50% is used for petrochemicals. We have achieved what most countries are trying to do now in terms of the transition process. We have 100% electricity generation by natural gas. We are using our excess capacity to produce ammonia, methanol, and urea. One of the ammonia and methanol are two of the products which are now being touted as being the transportation mechanism for hydrogen. And we have achieved this since 1953. We have been producing ammonia and methanol out of feedstock for natural gas. We have been producing electricity from natural gas since 1959. We had a gold standard with what the rest of us needs to do globally in terms of trying to fit natural gas as that transition fuel for a net carbon future, a low carbon future. So that being said, I want to come back to the first part of the question. What advice would I give to a country that has now come on as a new player dealing with probably production of oil and gas? Most multinationals would come into your country and tell you, you need to get that gas or get that oil from the wellhead onto a ship and ship it up to the north. And I'm saying the only way your country can progress or develop is if you bring that gas onshore. You bring that gas onshore, you develop your infrastructure, you develop your fence line industries around your petrochemical industries and or any other industry which you wish to develop with that feedstock. Because the main purpose of everyone else is to harness that gas to take it north. We need in the south to look at that resource as the building block for our domestic development. And unless we do that, we cannot develop our physical infrastructure on land. And our people in our country could benefit fully from their natural resource, what they are entitled to. So with that, I would like to pause and thank you again.
Thank you very much, Timmy. We've been very clear about, actually, Dominican Republic, and you mentioned that regulation and planning and everything. It's one of the keys to go forward at this point. So now on, I'm going to go to Elaine Moreno, quien es directora en el Ministerio de Energía y Minas de Cuba, y a mí me gustaría también que Elaine nos comentara, o sea, obviamente también aparte de la consulta que estamos haciendo, que estamos debatiendo todos cómo está Cuba ahora, en este momento, un poco que también nos hable de lo que todos sabemos en este momento, ¿no? El proceso que han tenido que cursar en estos últimos días, ¿no? Como muchos países de la región, con el desabastecimiento de energía, pero también que nos hablen del esfuerzo que han hecho en la nueva estrategia que tienen de transiciones energéticas que entiendo que ya está aprobada y lanzada en el país. Así que, Elaine, por favor.
Bueno, buenas tardes a todos, pero agradecer la presencia en este panel y compartir con casi todo el Caribe un poco los retos y los desafíos que tenemos, que no son pocos, hacia adelante para garantizar el desarrollo energético de nuestro país. Bueno, Cuba, como muchos de mis colegas han comentado, es un país dependiente de los combustibles fósiles. Tenemos 95% de combustibles fósiles, 5% de renovables. Con una situación extremadamente compleja que, bueno, con muchos he estado intercambiando en estos días. Tenemos una base de generación térmica con crudo, porque Cuba es productora de crudo nacional. Alrededor del 40% de la generación se genera con nuestro crudo, que es un crudo pesado, pero que nuestras termoeléctricas están preparadas para procesarlo. Y el resto pues se genera con fuel y se genera con diésel que importamos, lo que supone un esfuerzo enorme de financiamiento del país, que además, pues como todos saben, las condiciones geopolíticas de Cuba son especiales y obviamente el bloqueo es un factor que incide grandemente en el desarrollo energético de nuestro país y, por supuesto, en la garantía de suministro eléctrico. Recientemente, hace unas semanas, 10 días antes de venir para acá, tuvimos un blackout. Escuchaba a Barbados hablar del tema y es extremadamente complejo, es la situación más compleja, yo creo, que en la que se puede encontrar un sistema eléctrico en cualquier momento, porque para reactivarlo hace falta energía. Y precisamente nosotros no estamos interconectados por las razones que hemos abordado y que Timmy profundizó muy bien. Hoy ya el sistema está restablecido, tardamos alrededor de, vamos a decir, 70 horas más o menos en restablecerlo y está operando establemente, por supuesto, con un déficit de capacidad de generación precisamente por déficit de combustible, porque somos altamente dependientes. Entonces, Cuba está en una situación que más que ningún otro país quizás tiene necesidad de rápidamente transitar hacia una soberanía energética, que la tenemos nosotros en los combustibles nacionales y en las fuentes renovables de energía. Entonces, hemos aprobado recientemente una estrategia de transición energética que fundamentalmente concibe el trabajo en 4 sectores fundamentales, 4 ejes de desarrollo: la transformación de la matriz eléctrica en primera instancia, el sector, por supuesto, industrial y de servicios, el sector agroindustrial, como comentaba Irena al principio, es una de nuestras estrategias, sobre todo por la soberanía alimentaria. Nuestras islas también tienen ese problema, creo, en común, y el sector residencial y la gobernanza, porque en muchos de nuestros países el sector residencial es una carga importante de la demanda. En el caso de Cuba, por ejemplo, en los horarios picos más grandes que suceden en la noche, el sector residencial representa el 80% de la demanda. Por tanto, tenemos igual que Dominicana la misma condición, grandes diferencias de lo que es la media de generación con los picos de consumo que tenemos, sobre todo porque la cocción en Cuba es eléctrica fundamentalmente, y en ese momento donde oscurece y hay iluminación y hay cocción al mismo tiempo, pues la demanda sube en una diferencia de 500 megawatts en el caso nuestro. Entonces, nuestra estrategia está fundamentalmente en eso, en un esfuerzo muy importante de transformar la matriz eléctrica aceleradamente. Estamos en proceso de instalación de 2.000 megawatts de solar fotovoltaica con 200 de acumulación, compartiendo también lo que decía Dominicana de la necesidad de la acumulación. En el caso nuestro es para estabilizar la operación del sistema, o sea, no es para descargar, sino en esta primera instancia es para estabilizar, porque como hemos comentado aquí, nuestros sistemas que no están interconectados y no tienen esa fortaleza que brinda la interconexión necesitan operar establemente. Por tanto, la estrategia de Cuba en un principio es mantener la generación con combustible nacional, pero hacerla más eficiente, porque como discutimos hoy en la mañana en la reunión de ministros, también hay que aprovechar los recursos naturales que tienen nuestros países, y en el caso de Cuba es fundamental porque además tiene limitación de acceso al mercado precisamente internacional de compra de combustible. Estamos en un proceso también de mantenimientos capitales y modernizaciones de las principales termoeléctricas, que se quedarán pocas, pero que ayudarán a mantener la estabilidad del sistema y a consumir el combustible que tenemos. El gas forma una parte importante de nuestra generación. Cuba no produce gas, pero sí tiene gas acompañante de sus pozos, y en los últimos tiempos, particularmente en el último año, hemos hecho inversiones que han permitido tener más producción de gas, y precisamente estamos invirtiendo más en el incremento de la generación con gas, que hemos logrado completar plantas que teníamos construidas pero que no lográbamos completar la capacidad, y lo estamos completando con gas propio, lo cual es una ventaja, y es un poco de la visión de Cuba utilizar el gas como también parte de la transición, ¿no? Como ese combustible transicional. Y a la solar fotovoltaica es a lo que más le estamos apostando. Cuba tiene una radiación solar pareja en toda la isla, como casi todas nuestras islas del Caribe, y es una tecnología que podemos instalar con nuestros propios recursos, que la podemos instalar en tiempos muy rápidos. Debemos tener los primeros 1.000 megawatts a mediados del 2025, cosa que ha representado un esfuerzo gigantesco para todo el país, pero que nos va a dar un poco un respiro para poder seguir avanzando en la transición. Las energías renovables suponen, como para todos los países, un reto por la variabilidad que representan. Cuba tiene mucho sol, pero mucha nubosidad. E instalar tantas fotovoltaicas ha requerido de investigaciones técnicas que permitan decidir a qué distancias están los parques, de qué tamaño son, cómo se conectan con las subestaciones, cómo las redes y el sistema de distribución, de transmisión y distribución que tenemos hoy soportan esa inversión sin requerir inversiones millonarias adicionales en un primer momento. O sea que sigue siendo un reto tecnológico, y están los huracanes y los fenómenos climatológicos. Recientemente, justo con el blackout, tuvimos un huracán en la zona oriental del país, que realmente el sistema eléctrico se vio afectado, pero eso lo que supone es un reto adicional para que toda la energía renovable que instalemos, la instalemos con capacidades y materiales de resistencia, para que ensayemos cuáles son las medidas de protección, para que también diversifiquemos. Cuba también va a apostar a la eólica, por supuesto, en la zona de su litoral norte-oriental fundamentalmente. Tenemos biomasa, que es una de las apuestas también que estamos haciendo, sobre todo a partir del bagazo de la caña, que es algo que estamos tratando de recuperar. Y tenemos un eje muy importante que no podemos descuidar, que es la eficiencia energética. O sea, cómo a todo esto lo hacemos eficientemente con tecnologías que además ayuden a mantener las calidades de vida de nuestra población, la eficiencia de las industrias, y al mismo tiempo contribuyen al uso racional de la energía. Entonces, un poco por ahí va la estrategia nuestra, y esperamos estar en mejores condiciones en los próximos tiempos, y coincido con mis colegas que han hablado de la necesidad de ver la integración más allá de una interconexión. Hoy lo veíamos también. O sea, antes de pensar en eso, yo coincido que tenemos que pensar en cómo diseñamos objetivos comunes, metas comunes, regulaciones que de alguna manera estén armonizadas, teniendo en cuenta las especificidades de cada uno de nuestros países, porque el Caribe es una región muy especial, pero muy diferente, o sea, muy homogénea en donde estamos ubicados, pero muy diferente en sí mismo. Entonces, es necesario integrarnos primero desde esa visión. Cómo formamos las capacidades que necesitamos para hacer esa transición, cómo vemos la regulación de los mercados, cómo interactuamos entre nosotros. Entonces, yo creo que esos son pasos que sí pudiéramos ir dando en lo que es todo lo demás, que es extremadamente costoso, como un cable que interconecte a varias o a todas las islas. Pues realmente esa regulación y ese acercamiento nos va a permitir a lo mejor construir proyectos que de manera más efectiva pudieran beneficiarnos a todos.
Muchísimas gracias, Elaine. Y bueno, primero solidarizarnos con Cuba por lo que pasó. Hay varios países de la región que en este año han sufrido muchísimo por diferentes motivos y razones, y sabemos que están haciendo su mejor esfuerzo, y creo que el tema de que tengan esta estrategia y que tengan estos esfuerzos y que estén bien enfocados en lo que se viene, pues obviamente le felicitamos por ese punto. Y ahora quiero dar la bienvenida nuevamente a esta Semana de la Energía, que habíamos tenido una ausencia un poco prolongada, pero ya ahora los tenemos de nuevo en la mesa. Así que quisiera pues darle la bienvenida a Haití, quien nos acompaña hoy también en el marco de nuestras reuniones de gobernanza, de nuestra reunión de ministros y de nuestra junta de expertos, y agradecemos que estén aquí y que se han incorporado de nuevo a esta su casa, que es la Organización Latinoamericana de Energía. Y presento entonces a Evanson Calix, que es el director general de la Autoridad Nacional de Regulación del Sector de la Energía en Haití. Adelante.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Minister of Energy of DR, my neighbor, and distinguished guests, thank you for inviting me to speak in this special session on the Caribbean. You know that in Haiti now we have so many political and economical challenges. However, the country is moving forward as far as the energy agenda is concerned. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to Paraguay, because it's my first time here for the hospitality. It's a pleasure as well to see that Olade provided us the opportunity to discuss the development of Haiti's energy sector. One thing which is not clear maybe for you is that within the Latin region, we have about 20 million people without electricity. Someone can ask, where are those people? When you look at Haiti, 7 million are in Haiti. I'm just taking the Latin American, but if you take the Caribbean, it's even very, very difficult, very challenging. So most of the people that do not have electricity for the Caribbean region, they are now in Haiti. Just to give you an idea how difficult is it, for example, today I'm collecting data on a regular basis from the regulatory authority. So the available generation capacity for the if you do not know Haiti, we call it metropolitan region. That's where Port-au-Prince is, our capital. For the metropolitan region this morning, the generation was 60 megawatt. Just to give you an idea, the demand it's around 600. So you would say it's 1/10. So one can see that there is a very huge gap in terms of the generation capacity and what needs to feed, to really supply the country. That's to tackle those challenges. The government, even the former government and this government as well, has set up a clear vision. They want to transform our costly fuel-based electricity generation into a modern and sustainable energy sector where we use our local renewable energy. When we say local renewable energy, we mean wind, and Haiti, we mean solar, and women hydro and biomass. Those are the four local renewable energy that exist in Haiti. And what is good is that in 2016, 2016, when we start not coming to Wolade, nobody might not know about it, there was a new legal and regulatory framework that was established. Before, we had only one public utility that has the monopoly, and that was monopoly on generation, transportation, distribution, and commercialization. Since 2018, we had a new legal framework that creating the regulatory agency, created according to this law. And this new regulation allows for competition and private sector participation into the entire value chain. I mean, we're gonna have it in generation, in transmission, and distribution. Just to give you a clear idea about the strategy that we've been using in Haiti to tackle those challenges, we have developed a strategy that have three components. The first one was to expand the network for the metropolitan area. I mean, if you, I mean, I would say the region of Port-au-Prince. Let's put it, not Port-au-Prince, but the region. They call it the West region. And the government was signing with the Taiwanese a concession loan, which was around 150 million of US dollars, to do investment mainly into the transmission and the distributions. By transmission, I mean transmission lines, and by distribution, I mean power substations. Unfortunately, those works were, stopped 2 years ago because the sites are not accessible because of gangs violence. That's the reality now in Port-au-Prince. So the investment is there in the bank, but the works cannot be done because of the local situation surrounding Port-au-Prince. And the second component was that what happened in Haiti, we decided because of resilience, because we are very hurricane country, so we said that we're not going to have a big network, but we're going to have a network in Port-au-Prince and having a lot of regional networks. When I'm talking regional networks, I'm talking networks that are not connected to the main one, but those are in other cities. So we said the second one was to expanding the regional networks through private sector participation by taking into account the new law. And the third one, I think that's what many countries are doing now, is deploying off-grid solutions. When you say off-grid solutions in Haiti, we're talking about two types of solutions: mini grids, and as well, because in Haiti, what's happening, there are so many areas with low density population where it doesn't make sense to have mini grids, since we might have 10 households here, and you walk for a long way, you have 10 households. So what we did was what the technology we call mesh grid or solar home system. So we just installed a grid for 4 or 5 houses. We call it mesh grid. So we are working towards that. With the support of the World Bank and the IDB, the government was able to launch an aggressive rural off-grid electrification program. We said off-grid because most of those grids will not be connected to the main grid, and of those mini grids will be powered by solar PV, because Haiti is very shiny. I mean, we have a good insulation systems where PV makes sense to use it. And this program has been run under my guidance at the regulatory authority, and as well the Ministry of Public Works. They have an energy unit called Energy Cells. So what we did, we use most of country have been using it as well. We use a 2-stage bottom-up process to award grants, where we are offering a subsidy per connection. It's a result-based financing process. For example, for the mini grids, we have a fund, and we launch a bid. The private developers will receive a subsidy per connection. just to make sure that they address the capex issue, because because of the risk profile of the country. If you do a bid without giving any subsidy connection, I did it before, you will have no one showing up, because the risk is so high that no private developers will take a risk to cover the capex and as well to cover the opex. What we did is we were able to work with our partners to make sure that we have fund to cover the capex, and when the private developer come, they will have to work only to make sure they cover the opex. So what we did for the mini grids, where we did a regulation by contract. Everything was done within a 20 years concessions for the mini grids, and that was this is the first time while I'm the managing director, I was able to get 7 concessions signed this year. So it means that I have private developers that will be working on a 20 years contract within some sites. And to make sure that everything is pretty clear, we are developing a national regulation for mini grids. What we call mini grids in Haiti, those are the grids that are under 2.5 megawatt. Under 2.5, we call it mini grids, and we are developing a national regulation mini grids with the assistance of USAID to attract further investment, to make sure that they have only one document where they will find all information. As I said before, in addition to mini grids, we are developing merged grid, because the population are scarcely all over the provinces, so the density is not high enough to have mini grid. So we have something that pretty less that we call a merged grid, and we are working with a private company now. They have been making 3,000 connections, and they are aiming to extend it to 9,000. And for technical assistance as well, we are working with IDB, World Bank, and Caribbean Development Bank. I'm happy to say that, because most of the time I'm tackled the Caribbean Development Banks, because I feel like that Haiti was letting behind, because since we are the one who has 7 million of people without electricity, and we're pressuring CDB to make a move, and I'm pleased to say that they have committed. I said committed because I have to see the money. They have committed 5 million to help us for the mini grid, which I think is a good sign when you look at Haiti as a Caribbean country as well. So what we did from my office, we are doing now geospatial assessments to make sure that when you guys coming as a developer, you have all the information regarding the sites. We are having a study, we call it the willingness to pay survey. It might not make sense for you, because you say, if you have electricity, everyone should be able to pay. This is not the case in Haiti. In most rural areas where we show that where private investor will make his investment, we have to make sure that how much money people could be paying, since the money most of the time is not there. And we having as well a national electrification analysis. I think you guys have done it as well. They call it least cost analysis options, because we have so many options. We want to make sure which is the best cost scenario when you're going to deploy mini grid. Is it to extend the grid, or to do the mini grids, or to make sure that people have been supplied individually? And we make a study as well on productive use of electricity, because Haiti is a country of football, so we do not want people to have electricity to watch only games. We want to make sure that they have an impact as well on the local economy. So we are working with some local industries to make sure that the deployment of the mini grids that we'll be doing, it will have an impact of local on local economy. And as an opportunity for investors, we are working now to launch the bid for the regional grids, because what's going to happen in Haiti, we are going to work with the public utility, but we want to make sure that we bring as well foreign and private investment. So now, from the political standpoint, the country will be divided into zones. There were some zones that will be managed only by private operators. And there are some zones where, for example, the region where we have a lot of hydro, they will be still under the public utility, but the other zones will be for private, private investments. And those regional grids, just to give you an idea, they range from 10 to 40 megawatts. Maybe in some country you will call them microgrids, but since they're higher than 2.5, we call them regional grids. And as I speak now, despite the political challenges, the gangs violence, that's the reality. I'm not afraid to say it because that's the reality. But we are making some progress. We are building now a 12 megawatt power plant in the northeast region. Because what's happening on the news is that Haiti is a chaos, but which could be true when you look at Port-au-Prince. But Port-au-Prince is not Haiti. Because the west region is, it's terrible. That's where I live, it's terrible. But when you go to the region, in the northeast region, for example, it's stable. So I'm building a 12 megawatt power plant with the help of the funds funded by IDB and USAID. And the government was able as well to build 5 mini grids, because what we did in those 5 mini grids, we build infrastructure. When I build infrastructure, generation and the network. You call it transportation system, but we call it distributions. And what we ask now, we said our we have made investment in generation and distribution. We just want an operator to meet the operational costs and just to make the commercialization. So it means that we have made the up for the investment to make sure that for the end user, it will be less costly. So we have 5 mini grids that have been built now. We are looking at 5 private operators to run them. And we are trying to as well extend, scale the mesh grid technology. And a bid will be coming out pretty soon, because we are under the World Bank Fund. We're trying to make a grid-tied connection, because this is the first time that we will have a mini grid connected to the public utility. So we're trying to make all those scenarios, because me as a regulator, I want to learn. I want to make sure that we learn from an examples, and from the lesson learned, we can move forward. I'm seeing, to be honest with you, I think I finished, but I'm seeing the challenges in Haiti as an opportunity, because I've seen you guys are well ahead, but I've seen the mistakes that you have been making. So I'm trying to look at what everyone is doing and try to learn from that, and to make sure that we move into a new system. Thank you for your attention and for supporting Haiti, because I know that we've been out for a long time, and we are glad to be here. And believe me, we are here for the good. But we didn't stop. We were following what you were doing. That's the reason you could see that we are mostly in line of what Olade is doing in terms of energy strategy. Thank you.
I know that you've been there, but now you're in person and you're here, and that's it's a good goal for us to have you, all of you here, sitting in the same region that we are. Like integration, it's all of us, not only the Latin American and the Caribbean. So I think this is a very important thing that we have to mention. The last question, because we have a few minutes already to finish, but which me fui en inglés, me quedé en inglés, qué pena, qué pena, me quedé. Pero bueno, en la última preguntita es unos 5 minutos para identificar las barreras principales, quizás la más específica que podamos ver y que nosotros podamos aquí compartirlas. Aquí tenemos diferentes actores a quienes les podemos decir las principales barreras que nosotros tenemos en el Caribe con respecto a la transición justa para lograr este futuro bajo en emisiones de carbono y 0 emisiones netas al 2050. Brevemente, ¿qué es lo que ustedes les pudieran decir a este público que les está escuchando? Empezamos con usted, ministro.
Bueno, respecto a la descarbonización, el principal reto tiene que ver con la estabilidad del sistema, simplemente. O sea, ¿y a qué me refiero? Claramente, creo que todos queremos descarbonizar rápido, pero hay que reconocer, el carbón es un recurso disponible, es un recurso barato también. Por ejemplo, en el caso dominicano, tenemos cerca del 20% carbón, creo que lo mencioné ahorita. Ahora mismo son las plantas más eficientes del sistema, por lo tanto, hacen un aporte importante al precio medio o al costo medio que la distribuidora compra la energía. al ser plantas grandes, pues también juegan un rol importante estabilizando el sistema. Y obviamente eso uno tiene que compensarlo para poder eventualmente sustituirlo. ¿Qué tiene que suceder? Tienen que venir, se tiene que seguir eficientizando no solo la matriz, sino particularmente las renovables, tienen que continuar bajando de precio, tiene que venir el almacenamiento, y el almacenamiento vamos a decir, la base de las renovables tienen que competir con el carbón. Y obviamente también tiene que poderse manejar lo que es la estabilidad del sistema, sobre todo a nivel de frecuencia. Entonces, esos son los retos para ir descarbonizando. No es, se dice muy simple, o sea, vamos a decir aquí en el panel, yo mencionándolo, suena parece muy sencillo, no lo es con todos los retos que tiene el sistema. Es decir, o sea, la realidad es, el carbón hoy día juega un rol. Tenemos el gas. Yo le voy a poner un ejemplo concreto. El otro día, bueno, nosotros tenemos el 35% de gas ahora mismo. El otro día, por un huracán que no estaba ni siquiera cerca de República Dominicana, el huracán que atacó Florida, creo que fue. Bueno, ese huracán estaba desviando los barcos de gas. Entonces el sistema corre un riesgo. Entonces, obviamente, las plantas de carbón en ese escenario juegan un rol estabilizador. O sea, verdaderamente, señores, el tener el sistema diversificado en su amplitud, eso implica tener de todo un poco, juega su rol y estabiliza los sistemas. Claramente tienen que ir sucediendo estas cosas para que la descarbonización avance de una manera más rápida. Pero sí que es lo primero que tenemos que hacer, como dice, dando los primeros pasos, no añadir plantas de carbón. Es decir, seguir trabajando y no añadir plantas de carbón, y ir entonces a ver luego cómo podemos llegar a una descarbonización total. Pero es un proceso y es ir poniendo y soltando, como decimos nosotros los dominicanos.
Gracias, ministro.
Hacerse lo más gráfico posible, pero no es sencillo.
Súper bien, ministro, gracias. No, y qué bueno que lo menciona, porque es uno de los trabajos que estamos haciendo con ustedes en la mesa desde el día lunes, ¿no? En junta de expertos y ahora en reunión de ministros, que mañana pues esperemos que sean aprobadas estas declaraciones ministeriales, que efectivamente una de esas tiene que ver con lo que usted ha mencionado ahora. Así que súper. Keisha, please. Same question, like.
Fine. Okay, good afternoon again. And the minister mentioned resources, and we all can agree money is always a challenge. Most of us are highly indebted. But what I'm going to focus on is not just the money. So we've been lucky, we've been able to access financing from the IDB and the EU to help with our transition, especially in terms of our implementation of our project. So over the last 12 years, before I wore this hat, I was project manager, and we have over $100 million in projects across the energy spectrum that we would have been implemented. So as my colleague mentioned, his electric buses, Barbados is happy to announce that we have the largest penetration of electric vehicles in the Caribbean region. I think we're the third highest in Latin America. We have about 60 electric buses in our bus fleet and maybe about 400 electric vehicles. So we're really pushing in that direction, and we've done a number of solar projects on our government buildings, etc. But one of the things that keeps coming up all the time is institutional capacity. I had a project unit that started with 2 people, right, Christian? Then it got expanded to 6, now 15, but it's still a challenge with getting the right resources, the right fit resources, to not just implement projects, but also advise, So as I indicated, we now have great relationships with RELP and RAP and GAP, and they're assisting us with our best procurement. But that was a process before we didn't even know which direction to turn. And I think one of the things that we can do coming out of Elade is lessons learned, sharing information across the region. So I'm about to do a best project. Maybe somebody else did it already. They can point me in the right direction or say, well, don't do it like this, do it like this. Or we did it like this, that didn't work, turn another road. So I think the capacity issues and our strategic partners, as my minister mentioned earlier today, strategic partners are important. The IDBs and the EUs, they have a lot of capacity in terms of resources for consultants. They have a body of knowledge, and OLADA can also assist with pulling together those types of strategic partners to help us to forge our way forward as it relates to this transition. So that's the barrier that I would raise. And I know it's not the question, but I got the dates for the SE for All. It's March 12th to 13th in Barbados.
The dates.
Yes.
Ryan.
Las barreras en Belice son un poco diferentes de las demás islas en el Caribe. Porque cuando estamos hablando de la transición energética y moviendo más para energías renovables, en Belice las nuevas energías renovables no están compitiendo con generación de diésel como tal, como en el Caribe. No estamos compitiendo contra 40 centavos el kilovatio. En Belice estás compitiendo contra hidro y contra biomasa, que ya están en 12 a 13 centavos el kilovatio. Y también contra la interconexión que tenemos con México, que está en promedio de 8 centavos el kilovatio. Es que los nuevos solares que están compitiendo. Y como nuestras economías de escala son muy pequeñas, nuestra demanda total solo es de 127 megawatts ahorita. Y nosotros solicitando un proyecto tal vez de 40 o 60 megawatts, no nos atrae los inversores grandes o que nos van a reducir el precio al más bajo posible. Ese es nuestro grande reto ahorita. Y como mi compañero aquí, Timmy, que dijo que tal vez hay que ver cómo podemos hacer proyectos en conjuntos con otros países. Eso sí es una posibilidad, pero también cada país tiene sus diferentes tratos y sus diferentes timelines también. Unos que lo necesitan ya para mañana y otros que tienen el tiempo para planificar para ello. Y esas son las dificultades que nosotros estamos viendo.
Gracias, Ryan. Perfecto. Timmy.
Thank you. So, my perspective is this. At the intersection of sustainable development and a low-carbon future, at that intersection you have technology and natural gas. And when I say technology, that includes renewable energy. So, one of the barriers, I think, moving forward, and I want to build on Honourable Minister's comments about the natural gas, is that problem of depending on one system. And anytime that one system, there's a problem through natural disasters, you can have malicious damage, you find problems with your supply, with natural gas and or any other integrated system. The other thing is that buying into an integrated system, you buy into a communal pricing mechanism. And sometimes pricing in the various countries may not reflect the demand and supply scenario in your particular country. So therefore you are now left and you are vulnerable based on the vagaries of outside shocks. And you are dependent on pricing based on a hub pricing mechanism. And that is what we don't have in the region as well. So that, as well, developing systems and integrated processes may also even affect your indigenous people in remote areas where you try to get sustainability, and you try to target that SDG 7 goal, energy for all. So with trying to become more developed and more sustainable, there are issues and barriers which you may face. So that's just a couple points I would like to raise at the end here. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you very much, Timmy. Very quickly, Elaine, por favor.
Bueno, Cuba tiene ¿se escucha?
Translate. Sí, sí, sí.
Un poco las barreras que han comentado mis colegas, pero para nuestro país quizás la barrera fundamental es el acceso a financiamiento. Tenemos una condición especial, el bloqueo no es algo que vaya a desaparecer mañana, por tanto hay que vivir a pesar de, y entonces en los retos en los que hoy estamos precisamente es en desarrollar innovaciones financieras que nos permitan conectarnos con otros países, con otros sectores, con otras maneras diferentes de hacer que nos permitan entonces financiar esa transición. Y yo diría muy rápidamente que ese es el principal reto nuestro y que, bueno, estamos en función de pensar y desarrollar esos mecanismos financieros. Esperemos que con esta decisión también que vamos a poner sobre la mesa mañana nuestros ministros de la integración del Caribe, podamos quizás abordar también parte de estos instrumentos con los cuales todos podamos avanzar.
Sí, claro, y eso era lo que también te iba a comentar. Bueno, y comentar al final, ¿no? Esa decisión ministerial que también nos impulsa, ¿no? A tener esta integración como Caribe también. Evanson, please.
Yes, thank you. I think I've said that before, maybe at the end of my presentation. And in Haiti, it's difficult to say that we are targeting now the carbon neutral because, as I said before, we are building our system back. Do not forget that we have two main earthquakes. The one in 2010 that destroyed completely the area of the west region, Port-au-Prince. And if you go to some places, you will have the impression that the earthquake happened maybe 2 years ago. So just to tell you that the challenges are pretty high. So as I said before, we're trying to build our system now, but it's my understanding that our energy mix will be from gas, natural gas, as we are building now a 60 megawatt power plant based on LNG. And the load for Port-au-Prince is, as I said, should be around 400, more than 400 megawatt. There is no way now, when you look at the technology that is available, that we will be able to have the base load without the gas-fired power plants. So it's my understanding that we will have a mix that will be rely on gas and renewables. When I mean renewables, I think I said it before. I'm talking about solar PV generation and hydro, because we still have some hydro capacity in the country. And our biggest potential in terms of renewables is wind, offshore winds. Unfortunately, what's happening, the biggest challenges is that where there's a potential, the location where there's a potential, there are no transmissions. And when you look at the place where the potential is, the demand is very low. So the demand is very high in the Port-au-Prince region. But when you look at that in terms of transmission investment that need to be done, we are talking about somewhere between 300 kilometers of transmissions. So, it's a very complicated situation. That's the reason we're trying to be realistic. As I said before, we are dividing the country into different zones. We'll be working on each zones to make sure that each zone will work independently, as I said, because of resiliency, because we did that before. We had a hurricane that was destroyed the South region, everything gone. And we look at what happened in Puerto Rico. We said that we do not want to do the same thing. That's the reason, as I said before, the way that I'm seeing it is that we are not there yet, but since we are building our system now, we have a chance to make it cleaner, to make sure that renewable energy is a good part in our mix. Now, if I will tell you it's 60%. So no, it's good. But 60% of 60 megawatt in Port-au-Prince, because 30 megawatts are from hydro and 30 from thermal. So it's that good. As far as we're going to increase the the generation, we need to make sure that we keep the same proportion at least, which is not going to be easy. That's the reason if I'm giving you a digit, it will be tricky. What I can tell you is that since we are making it now, we have a chance to have an energy mix that's really, not really gas, not too gas dependent, but I'm pretty sure that we'll have a mix between gas and solar, hydro, and biomass and wind. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Gurbus, in 3 minutes, Irina's view, please.
Thank you very much. I would just reflect on one point that I think most of the panelists have touched upon, is the infrastructure challenge. When we talk about infrastructure, it's about grids, it's about storage, it's about, if you're doing e-mobility, the related infrastructure, charging stations, network. If you're thinking about hydrogen, the related infrastructure that you need to develop. And it's not surprising, because first of all, we need to think that the current energy system based on fossil fuels, it took a century to make it perfect. Yeah. So it will be just a wishful thinking, everything will change from today to tomorrow. It will take its time. The question is whether we can accelerate it, and whether what we can do to be able to take action by the relevant actors. That's where Irina comes in. That's what we work with the governments, we work with the financial institutions, but equally we work with the industry. In fact, we have recently created the alliance called Utilities for Net Zero Alliance. The main purpose is to address the infrastructure challenge and how more funding can go into infrastructure development. And we don't have any institutions, any utilities from the region, from the Caribbean. And with this occasion, I would like to invite those utilities to voice because Caribbean context is completely different, which might be completely different than the mainland context. And I think this kind of views brought into this discussion will be extremely beneficial. But also, I'm sure there are a lot of things that they can learn from the good examples from elsewhere.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to join this initiative that you have to all the Caribbean. Bueno, en mi conclusión, creo que la ruta para este desarrollo energético de Caribe debe trazarse también como en torno a los principios de descarbonización, de electrificación, de resiliencia e integración regional, como lo hemos hablado específicamente en este panel, con un enfoque que priorice un poco la sostenibilidad y también el acceso universal a la energía. Creemos firmemente que la colaboración con América Latina y el Caribe, tanto en términos de conocimiento técnico como en acceso a financiamiento, sería también la clave para lograr este sistema energético robusto y equitativo que corresponda a estas necesidades para los próximos años y que prepare al Caribe también para estos retos climáticos y económicos en el futuro. Nosotros desde OLADE pues les agradecemos y estamos trabajando, bueno, cada uno de ustedes son parte de nuestra Board of Experts y de nuestra reunión de ministros de energía, y aquí ellos también alzan la voz en ese marco y en esa mesa de trabajo, comprometidos desde OLADE con el Caribe para poder robustecer, ¿no?, con decisiones ministeriales que hablan de integración también del Caribe, pero también con temas como descarbonización, como eficiencia energética, en la que muchos de nosotros podemos estar sumados también a estas declaraciones y metas conjuntas para avanzar, ¿no?, en un sector energético integrado. Así que muchísimas gracias, Caribe, por estar aquí hoy, por estar en esta Semana de la Energía. Los invitamos a todos a seguirnos en los siguientes paneles y muchísimas gracias a todos y a todas por habernos acompañado en este interesante panel. Mucho gusto.